there was a time when we could admit that these games and the devices played on them weren't just marketed toward children. That in fact, adults may want to interact with the video game. And that advertisements are meant to sort of have a mass appeal. Young men, ages teenager to adult, do appreciate a fine lady standing in front of an arcade cabinet, dressed in various states of related attire, of course. But this time has come to an end, and we have these groups like Collective Shout to thank for it, because, after all, it would be bad if a young man saw one of these advertisements here and thought that a woman might walk around dressed in a bullet bolero, brandishing a wartime weapon. I could be wrong. That may just be a regular AR-15 with some fancy spooky stuff on it, but for the time period, I'm just going to guess that it's a weapon of war. Could be plastic for all I know. Or, a stabby grenade knife on the hip. I don't know what that is. I don't know what kind of knife that is. Combat knife? Probably a combat knife. It's probably made out of plastic, though. But again, some young man may see these and think, wow, I want to play that video game because that pretty girl is near that, and set up an expectation in his mind that pretty women play video games. Oh, wait, they do. Huh. Wouldn't that be weird if young men got accustomed to the idea of having women around video games instead of, not? It doesn't matter if the subscriber count never changes. What matters is if we let the subscriber count change us. Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You don't just climb up in front of a microphone and start spouting off your opinions because you're a YouTuber. You do it because you're driven. I must digress because we are in a war of ideas, gentlemen. And so I ask you to just come with me on this one, all right? This prayer here is from Isaiah 6:8, and it says, "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send? Who will go for us?' And I said, 'Here am I. Send me.'" Now, I know that this seems like an overreaction, a bizarre turn, especially after bringing up that sexy stuff. But what I want to point out to you is that this is not an act of love that these women are carrying out. It's an act of control. They've spent their entire lives being vexed by the idea that men find them attractive. It annoys them, it bothers them. And above all, men making money off of that really gets a bee in their bonnet. Now, because of this, they have raised a flag, a banner, to destroy what you and I consider to be harmless, things that you and I may not even interact with or care about. But the trouble is they won't stop there. They're not going to stop there. And we'll get into that. So I want you to say today to yourself, I am part of this ideological war, and I am here to stop the spread of control. If it's not done through law, through debate, through open and honest discussion, it should not be done. It's that simple. We can't use payment processors to browbeat people because one day those payment processors will turn around and say, I don't want to do a business with the Jesus people no more. Those Jesus people, they got some weird ideas, and I don't like those Jesus people. So we're not going to be doing business with churches no more. You can't buy no Bibles. You can't buy nothing with Jesus' face on it because it's super spooky. Tell me that that's not possible. Tell me that the Fruit Loops in Congress wouldn't jump all over the opportunity to strip all form of control out of that. And that's the trouble with not using the law to change these things, because you end up with a corruptive influence and control of all of this that forces people to make a decision on this that most oftentimes is quite dramatic. Now, I remind you, speaking of dramatic notions, these are the same people that went out and tried to get GTA 5 removed because it has violence against women in it. This is way back in 2014 when they did this. They've been at it for quite a while, amassed quite a bit of power. And this is their big power move, is to go to Visa and MasterCard, these payment processors, and threaten them. That's right. These are mafia-like tactics employed by Collective Shout, in which they go out and they explain to these cardholders, these payment processors, that they will smear these people, that they will make sure that the world at large knows that they are facilitating and, in fact, participating in the destruction of children's innocence. And they will find the most extreme examples to tie them to. Again, we're going to see this happen because these people are not leftists. They're not people that are on the blue haired freako side. These are Christian women who started out with a valiant mission, but have evolved into being way overstepping their boundaries. Just like any guard dog can go over the edge and do a little more damage than what they're supposed to do, chase off the wrong people, so too can a guardian group become emboldened by decisions and victories that have led them to a position where they think they're invincible and it's their job to cleanse the world. We'll see it right here. You remember Anna Valens? That's the person that went after Kersha. Remember Kersha, right? How could you forget? She just did a show with Medicare. It was pretty fun. It was a few weeks ago, last week, I think. Anyway, it was pretty fun. But either way, Anna Valens is back to let us know that Savage Ventures, the people who own Vice, decided to take down Anna Valens' several articles that critiqued Collective Shout. And that's what Anna Valens is letting everyone know. This is the person with a very curious interest in making babies against people's will. Okay, so as you know, this person is not Anna Valens is not of the right side. She's not of the conservative end. She's very much an adversary to Kershaw because of this. And now, Collective Shout has stepped forward and said, "You, who is a fourth wave feminist, you need to sit down and be gone." And thus, Anna Valens is gone. Think of it what you will, but that's the reality that we're facing. But there is good news about all of this because Japan has started to put sanctions on payment processors, and it has only started. Now, again, they started this last year as Visa began putting in controls on Japanese media so that certain websites were completely taken off the internet, certain market spaces were completely eliminated, whole genres of manga were completely wiped out from the marketplace in a foul swoop. Anime that was based off of it likely gone with it too. Merchandise and all that jazz. Now, again, this begins with the most extreme examples of this material, but then finds its way into areas that are less troubling to most people. Let's put it that way. And I'll give you an example. Right here in the good old USA, we had Senator Mark Warner. Yeah, Mark Warner. And he came out last year and he told good old Gabe Newell over at Steam that we need to investigate what's going on here with these anti Semitic, Nazi, white supremacist, gender, and sexuality based hatred and other extremist ideologies that are all over Valve's Steam platform. Okay? So today, we do away with the stuff that's icky, that you don't want to talk about in public, that you may or may not even have known existed. These games over on Steam that have now been removed, and more to come. Okay? However, it does not stop there. Because Collective Shout has made it possible to strong arm these corporations into obeying them, more activist groups are going to take this same route in order to accomplish it. How long until we can't have Old West games? Because at some point in the Old West, there was a war against the Native Americans, tribal Americans, if you prefer, and they ended up not having a great time at the end of that conflict. So we just can't talk about the Cowboys anymore because we can't give money to hateful groups that glorify those hateful cowboys, those hateful Union soldiers, right? Right? Eventually, we're not going to be able to have games that took place anytime around the age of slavery because that would glorify slaveholders and people who didn't take action during the age of slavery. So, thus, we can't have money going to them. Do you see how this goes? Do you see how this goes? Because we've already reported about Melinda Tanktop, the leader, and she doesn't like big boobs. That's right. She has a huge problem. She believes that video game characters have breast augmentation surgery. That's right. That these women are like Laura Croft. Before she went out and started jumping into tombs, she was apparently getting a boob job before she did that. Because nothing says exploring, partially collapsed caves and, partially underwater ruins like big old boobies, right? Can't go tomb raiding without your big old boobies, right? No. See, the problem is that they hate characters like this. And it's not just that they hate the characters, they hate the concept behind these characters. The one thing that they don't have a problem with is cuties. That's right. So this is Renee Chopping, or Chopin, perhaps is her name. Chopping, Chopin. You have to let me know. I'm not Australian. I don't know these names, how they're pronounced locally. I know that in English that says chopping, but it could be Chopin. I don't know. Shopping could be shopping for all I know because ch makes a tons of different noises in English and in languages that are or accents that are based out of English. But I digress. We have Renee here, and she's explaining why Cuties is okay, right? And so they open up with like gamers are dredging up our support of the Netflix film Cuties in an attempt to paint us as pro exploitation. Okay. This was her magnificent takeaway, and I'm just going to scroll down to the important part here. So this is Melinda Tank Top, okay? Melinda Tankard Reich. I don't know. Anyway, Melinda is the head hen here. She is the central figure, the head of the Cobra, if you will. And so this lady has been the sort of public face, the public policy communicator, effectively the leader of the gang, if you will, in any definition you'd like to choose. And this is what she had to say about Cutie. She says, a few minutes of inappropriate, ethically problematic filming buried in a broader, urgent message. We don't ignore those issues, but we also don't let them distract from the film's truth. Now, again, she wants to stress right here. She says, for the people in the back, Cuties made people uncomfortable because it exposed a culture that grooms girls and normalizes their abuse. The games, again, these people are very venomous. The games we're calling out are part of the pipeline to real world violence against women and girls. So, just so you're aware, Cuties, as you saw in the thumbnail, features young ladies who have been trained. These are young actresses, I believe under the age of 13. These are preteen actresses, and they were trained in how to twerk and how to hump the stage. They were trained in exotic dancer routines, adult exotic dancer routines. There is no reason to teach a child how to twerk. None whatsoever. I would say that a teenager should not know how to twerk either, not be taught it anyway, least of all by adults in their lives. And again, I draw the line at this stuff. See, this is the problem with Collective Shout that makes them a difficult adversary. Is they make good points, but on the other side, they get really, really hostile when you don't want to go along with their jackboot approach to fixing those problems. See, this is the issue that we run into. I agree that there are things in media that are troubling, but I don't believe that stomping them out without debate is going to fix any of it. You have to have an open and honest debate, and you will not get your way. You will get some of your way, but not all of your way. But I digress back to this. These young women were taught how to do this. So, just to be clear, we're going to jump back over here to our Bounding into Comics post about this. And it says Collective Shout advocate Renee Chopin runs away when confronted with the reality of praising real world CSEM. Now, CSEM is child sex exploitation material, okay? It's a little different than abuse because I don't believe these girls were abused. I believe they were treated very kindly, but they had their innocence stolen from them, okay? Now, to be clear, this woman believes that it is A-OK for that to have happened because on the other side of this, right? On the other side of this is her excuse. A few minutes of inappropriate, ethically problematic filming. Collective Shout now claims that teaching adult entertainment dance routines to preteen girls was a small price to pay to, checks notes, shame people for teaching adult entertainment dances to preteens. That's what they did. That's the full circle on this. That's their wholehearted commitment that they have had since this production arrived on Netflix. When it came on, I canceled my Netflix subscription. I have never set foot on that platform again. If I am watching a trailer, it is because I do it for this job right here at Bounding. I don't do anything with that platform. I don't go to it. I think I have it blocked on all the social media platforms too. I don't have anything to do with that platform. As soon as I found out, canceled a Netflix subscription, I've never gone back. Everybody I run into, I remind them that Cuties is on there and that they need to really, really, really think about giving money to Netflix for that. All right? Now, regardless, if you're just watching anime on there, you're still paying for stuff like Cuties. Sorry, that was where I came down on it. I can't be part of a platform. I can't be giving money to a platform that puts that garbage, that horrible, exploitative, evil stuff on the platform. For me, I hated it. I won't have anything to do with it whatsoever. I've walked away from other channels that do this as well. I won't have anything to do with the stuff that involves Mr. Beast's weird little things that he does with bathing suit competitions, where he's got everybody in bathing suits, because I can't guarantee everybody there is of age. So I walk out. I don't want anything to do with that stuff. It's my choice, and that's how I govern it. But for collective shout, clout shout, they can't allow that. And in fact, they sit there and they run away when they're called out for this. They blocked our account as soon as we brought to their attention that this is child exploitative media. It really is. And the thing is that they don't register that, because the point of Cuties is to demonstrate that girls are abused in media production by abusing girls in media production. They don't put that together. They just think that, well, the 14 to 22 hours that these young girls were subjected to learning how to sexually exploit their bodies, um, you know, that's a small price to pay for making everybody in the audience super duper uncomfortable. You see, the alternative to this was having actresses, young actresses, do a recreation of an interview. All right. Actually interview the victims, then hire actresses of the same age to portray them, then show adults dancing the dances that these young children who are portraying the victims claim to have been taught as part of the cycle of abuse that's happening in media. Now, if you're not tracking and that's too much of an explanation, they didn't have to show the kids doing the dances. They could have just had the kids talking about the dances while adults are doing them in the background or in the footage overlaid. Okay. They're narrating it while the adults are doing the dances. But it wasn't about that. It was about making sure that you and I feel uncomfortable watching children perform in front of us. And this is what the feminists right here at Collective Shout believe is good. That you and I, who don't want to watch children in a sexual manner, rightfully feel uncomfortable watching children presented in a sexual manner. This is what they consider a victory. I can't pound this any harder, guys. They think that it's good that you don't like watching this. Well, of course you don't like watching it, but they think it's a good idea to make you watch it to prove a point that you don't like watching it. This is their logic, that because it makes you uncomfortable, it's good. No, just telling me that it's happening is good. There's a YouTube series called Pedowood right here on YouTube, and it's been going on for years. It's a bunch of different creators that are pooling in here and explaining what happened to Amanda Bynes, what happened to Jeanette McCurdy, what happened to Britney Spears, what happened to these women that were, and young men who were abused by guys like Dan Schneider, allegedly. Okay, I don't want to get a channel sued, but were allegedly abused by Dan Schneider. You can go look that up right now. You can stop this video if you want to. Go look at right now that there's a bunch of videos exposing what happened in Hollywood. But that's not what they want to do. They don't want to make you uncomfortable with facts. They want to create more destruction of innocence in order to tell you that there's destruction of innocence in the world. That's the logic that they're using. And I've had enough of it, because guess what they apply to anime? Check this out. They agree with Senator Sterling Griff that that anime is, and this is what he says. Senator Griff described anime movies depicting wide-eyed children, usually in school uniforms, engaged in explicit sexual activities, poses, and often being sexually abused. I've never, ever saw that in an anime that made its way to children. There are plenty of them with adult content. Plenty of them. They're called hentai. They're like pornography. They are not meant for children, right? Even though it looks like the anime, it's not, okay? Now, again, this is that infantile desire to say, that looks like that, so that means they're the same. It's the whole bleach drinking brain mentality thing. These women are the reason why we had to put don't drink on the side of the bleach containers. They're the reason why we had to throw the eggshells away on the side of the cake mix. Okay? You had to explain thoroughly what's happening in front of them. Otherwise, their brains are just going to explode with the possibilities, all right? Just blah, with the possibilities of what could happen here. Now, anime does feature upskirt shots. Sometimes those are of teenage girls. That happens. Characters that are fictional, right? That are teenage implied or said to be teenage girls. There's no denying that. There's no point in denying that. However, that media is different in Japan, that has a different relationship with men and women. Okay? Now, to go enforcing that idea is this funny thing that leftists like to call imperialism, where you take the values, moralism, laws, and beliefs of another country and force them onto yet another. Weird, right? You'd think that they wouldn't be interested in that, but these are just college educated women. They don't know any better. They don't know any better. But this is how they view anime. All of it. All of it is exploitive to women. There's no mention of how young men are portrayed in there. There's no mention of Deku being topless through most of his entire anime run. If it's not burned off of him, he himself has taken his shirt off. But that's perfectly fine. That's not an objectification of boys. It's only when the air blows the skirt up that we've got to burn down all of Japan. And when it boils down to it, these women do truly hate Japan. So here it is right here. This is their excuse. Yeah, here. Sorry, this is the one. So they went after. They want to talk about this, where depicting the rape and sexual abuse of children, often in school uniforms. This was being sold in Australian stores. Now, what they've done here is they have put Sword Art Online, a screenshot from Sword Art Online that is not related to what was on shelves in Australian stores, okay? What I want to make abundantly clear is they have gone and taken a massive leap here. And again, if you know anybody involved with Sword Art Online, like the company or whatever, please let them know that this corporation, this group right here, Collective Shout, is libeling them as child abuse material. And that the creator should be made aware that his work is being libeled as child abuse material and that he himself has been called a predator. I'm trying to think of a good word, but that was the only one that came to mind, so you have to deal with it. It's been called a predator. It's all right in these write-ups, these various write-ups, as they keep skipping around. Sword Art Online is a huge sticking point for them for some reason. I have no idea why they're so hung up on Sword Art Online, but they imply that there was a sexual assault scene in there. But what happened is one of the female characters was being forcibly undressed with the villain intending to sexually assault her, but the hero intervenes. This is no different than the damsel being tied down to a railroad track as a train arrives. The implication is that she would be sexually harmed, which raised the stakes for the hero to save her, and he did. Again, nothing was shown. It was the implication that she is in this type of danger. And this is why they wanted that anime completely banned from Australia. And this is why they continue to paint it as a destructive force in children's media. This is Sword Art Online. Go watch any clip right now on YouTube. Let me know how destructive it is to children, if you will. But again, this is what they're doing. Now, what they presented here was a bunch of stuff that does feature the harm of children, okay? What's implied to be children, all right? Now, I don't like this media. I go back and forth on if it should exist or not. I don't really find a legal remedy to deal with it, but I just stay away from it. That's the best I can do. I don't believe that by reading a manga about a child being harmed and that being presented as a positive, I don't believe that reading that document, that creation, is going to then inspire you to go out and harm someone. I think that the decision to do that is already in you when you began engaging with that media and you already carried that through. Now, there are people that innocently engage with this media because they have a interest in that type of media and they have no interest in carrying that out in real life. There's no law preventing this. There isn't. The United States, Japan, Australia, any of these places where this stuff is being fought very hard, they're not having this law that's banning this type of material. If you want it banned, pass a law. It's very simple. Don't go around and paint Sword Art Online as being a gratuitous abuse of children, all right, when it's not, and it never was. They're just upset that the main character goes around with a big booby girl, and they very much hate big boobies. So I skipped into this one. So this is where they draw the line with video games and, the media that features young women being sexually engaged, be it negatively or positively, okay? And so Caitlin Roper, she's the young lady or mother that felt that advertising is sexist, that the majority of advertising is sexist. Just so you know who you're dealing with here. that she couldn't take her children out in public because they were being bombarded by sexual material. There's crazy stuff going on in Australia, apparently. It's really crazy down there. Despite all those laws that they've passed about these decency things, apparently they're not working. And now they've decided to take it out on the rest of the world. But this is what she had to say. She says child exploitation material or child abuse material refers to sexually abusive images of children. It may include photographic or video evidence of rape, sexual abuse, or torture of children and infants. Virtual or computer generated child exploitation material is produced without the use of living children, depicting fictional children. Under Australian law, this constitutes illegal child exploitation material. The Commonwealth Criminal Code prohibits the sale, production, possession, and distribution of offensive and abusive material that depicts a person or is representative of a person who is or appears to be under 18. And so this is where they go on. The increased accessibility and availability of child sexual abuse material online appears to normalize this crime and may encourage potential offenders and increase the severity of abuse. This includes new phenomena such as drawings and virtual representations of non existing children in a sexualized manner, widely available on the internet. And so, again, they continue on with this diatribe about if you see it, you'll do it. All right. And I would like them to ask their husbands, all right? I would like them to ask their husbands if they can sit through an episode of Sailor Moon without wanting to go out and SA a teenage girl. If they could sit through an episode of Sword Art Online and resist the urge to go out and SA a teenage girl. Can they play a video game like Honkai? No, not that one. Uh Genshin Impact. Can they play Genshin Impact? Can they play Marvel Rivals with all the big boobies and cleavage? Remember those thick thighs on Emma Frost? I can't say that that one's going to fly with the old censor cows. So you'll have to ask yourself, where does it end? Where does it end? And it doesn't. It doesn't end because this is how it was when we were advertising the Nintendo DS Lite. You just run across this in a magazine. There's a pretty lady there. There's a panther. Her the DS Lite is next to her boobs. See, I got distracted, right? Oh no, I'm proving that point. But the problem is that this was not intended for children. It's quite obvious this was not intended for children, as again, the game is not the emphasis here. It's the, you know, woman. And quite obviously, even if this wasn't a comic book, it was not meant for a 9-year-old. It probably wasn't meant for a 13-year-old either. This advertisement was most likely meant for 16 to 25-year-olds. All right. Now, there are women who probably don't like the idea that 16-year-olds would have an advertisement like this fed to them. However, this is very normal. They're going to run into this in the Fast and the Furious movies. They're going to run into this in any action movie these days. Even superhero movies have this. I'll remind you that Mary Marvel was sporting a couple of prize winning pumpkins in the Shazam movies. All right. Now, I digress, but you know what I'm talking about, that there were quite a few young men who left there not remembering a moment of what happened with Shazam himself, but good old Mary stuck with him. And I don't think that's a problem. I don't, because those young men do not go out into the world with the expectation that every woman they meet is going to be looking like Mary or behaving like Mary or dressing like Mary. They do, however, find this attractive and entertaining and exciting, and so they engage with it. Now, it's the intent behind this media that's always the problem. Things like Barbed Wire, for instance, that one with Pamela Anderson in it, where she's done up in a very revealing outfit, but she's kicking butt while she's doing it. Now, that's perfectly fine in my book, but it shouldn't be something shown to someone who's probably under the age of 16. Might be a bit much for them to wrap their head around. Same with Stripperella. Stripperella, I believe, should be 18 plus, but you're a parent. You can make up your own decisions what your children should be exposed to. But these are things that are quite clearly made for children, I mean, for adults, that are not clearly made for children. Stripperella is animated. Some children may be mistaken when they run across the initial thumbnails or video stills of that and activate an episode that is not intended for them. But as a parent, you need to be there to explain that, whoa, 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 buddy, we're going to watch the Powerpuff Girls instead of Stripperella, okay? Few more years before you're allowed to watch Stripperella. But this implies that the parent must be active and attentive, and by golly, that's just so exhausting.